Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast. It's that time again. You should know where you are. This is Tyler Sheff, and I am one part of the Cash Flow Guys. My partner in crime is with us, Mikey here.
We're here from Colorado again, yeah.
All right, man. How is the weather out there? It's today. It's all the way down to 60 in Florida.
I laugh whenever you say that. I think it's like 22 out right now. It feels great.
Right. Are you cold enough where the dog won't go outside and potty?
Don't eat the yellow snow, Tyler.
Exactly.
You're from Florida. You're not used to that.
Well, we have a special guest today. I'm pretty excited. As you guys know, we started our real estate syndication this past year, learned a lot, and we got an asset, and we're thinking about potentially building that out as a assisted living facility, running it, building it to an operator. Because what we've learned is that we're really good at real estate, and that's what we like to do. That's our comfort zone. That's where we want to be, and that's what helps us scale. And in that process of deciding, is this asset, does it make sense as a assisted living facility, we started reaching out to the experts. And I have probably the expert on the show this week is why beat around the bush? Why not just go right to the top of the food chain and figure this out? With us today is Isabelle Guarino. And I got that right, didn't I, Isabelle?
Got it right.
Yeah, see, because with a last name like Sheff, I'm used to my name getting slaughtered. So I tried real hard to get it right. So Isabelle's the Chief Operating Officer at the Residential Assisted Living Academy. The REL Academy teaches how to build, buy, and then operate residential assisted living homes. They've trained people across the country to turn the single family homes into cash flow machines. That got my attention. And Isabelle, I'm from I started in the single family space. I gravitated over to multifamily, and now we bought a single family home. And part of the reason why we did that is it's big. It's 3,500 square foot. It's got lots of bedrooms, got a great deal on it. Nice lot, right neighborhood, best location. Started looking at, okay, we'll convert it over to multifamily. City said, no, you won't. Even though we get our legal teams involved, they still say, no, you're not doing that. So we start looking at what can you do? And they don't necessarily like to fill in the blanks, as I'm sure you know. And we're going to talk more about zoning in here as we get further into the episode. But one of the strategies that the city of Tarpon Springs, which is where this house is located, absolutely loves is residential assisted living. And that light bulb, Mike and I, our light bulb went off. We're like, we need to figure that out. And of course, if you guys go into Google right now, sitting at home, pull over your car, type residential assisted living into Google, the first thing you're going to see is you, Isabelle. So you're killing it in marketing. Love that. And you have built this business. It's a family business that you guys have started many years ago, started with your dad, passed on to you and whatnot, your brothers, I believe. And now you have the Residential Assisted Living Academy.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. And we'll start with who do you feel you guys have trained? I've lost count on how many people I've talked to that are former students of yours. Well, I shouldn't say former because it's a lifelong process. Learning, they're addicted to what you guys put out. I think that's exciting. You don't see that a lot. I learned about you guys. I met your dad through the real estate guys. I'm huge fans of them. You, of course, know them both. Who's best suited in your mind to run this type of business, to be like an operator for residential assisted living?
Great question. I think that there's really two categories of people, but there's one common trait. Okay. The two categories would be real estate investors, people who are sick of fix and flips. Airbnbs aren't working out for them anymore. Maybe they, are tired of dealing with the tenants in apartments or whatever the case may be. A tired real estate investor is one category. And the second is a medical professional, maybe someone who's making good money, but doesn't really know what to do with it and wants to start investing in a new and different way. But the one common trait that I see of our successful students is grit. You have to have grit in this industry. You have to be able to get punched in the face and get back up and keep going, because there's going to be a lot of roadblocks and no's, and you can't do this here. And no matter who you are, where you come from, if you don't have that, it's really not going to work in your favor.
That's good advice. I like that. People sometimes get into real estate not realizing that grit is a very important element. And you're right. There's a lot of strategies you can go through that don't really require a lot of grit to be successful. You can, fix and flip houses. You got a good contractor. They do most of the work. You hire a good broker to sell it. off you go to the races. And, half the people are buying off the shelf anyway for the market. Doesn't take a whole lot of talent to buy something from a realtor if you're going to fix and flip. But you get into these specialty things, you're absolutely right. Especially we get into zoning and all the laws and whatnot. What I'm seeing is over the last decade, especially, and it's been, in my opinion, nearly impossible to buy a single family home. And I'm going to say air quotes, honestly cash flow. And folks at home, you're probably wondering, what does honestly cash flow mean? We tend to think because every deal we do is a great one, but in reality, sometimes you don't realize that it's not making you money. It's costing you money after the fact. I see situations where people go out and spend $300,000 on a house and they rent it for $2,000 to find out, oh, I'm making $2,000 a month. Well, that's cool, but you forgot about the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the property manager, all the expenses, the water heater at 2 a.m. Residential assisted living changes that game. That's what I'm seeing, that perspective. Can you shed some light on that as far as, I know in your training and a lot of, because we follow you on social media as well, which you do a great job on, by the way. You're talking about we can get a real estate investor that buys the asset, leases it to an operator.
Yeah.
And in some cases, double market rent.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So why would an operator be willing to pay double market rent?
Typically what we see when someone owns the real estate and you're leasing it to the operator, the person who owns the real estate has retrofitted. They've renovated it, made it ready to go for assisted living. So the operator might not be cash heavy, right? They may not have any experience in real estate. So your listeners and people like you who are very experienced in real estate and know what you're doing can take a property and renovate it to whatever you want it to be. And when you make it perfect for assisted living, adding in ramps and guardrails, widening hallways and doorways, making private bedrooms and private bathrooms, and just making it senior safe and accessible. Now that operator would be willing to pay you for the work you've done because the home is ready to go. They can move their business in right away. And you're saving them a lot of time and energy and money and stress, especially when there's someone who might not have real estate experience. So it's kind of a really good partnership in that way. It's almost the sweat equity and the person who's doing all that being the money factor, more or less, at the end of the day.
So, Isabelle, on the same theme, so if somebody has a large single family house and they can't cash flow it, the city shut their Airbnb down, which is happening a lot around the country right now. How do they get the experience? How do they know exactly how to convert this house to an assisted living friendly place?
Well, there's a lot of different tips and tricks, but each state will provide some form of rules and regulations on what you should and shouldn't do and what you must do. Typically, the rules are really low. Like they're saying 80 to 100 square feet per person. And it's that's tiny. So we suggest 300 to 500 square feet per person. So if you had 10 residents in the home, minimum a 3,000 square foot home, upwards of 5,000. The state will also give you usually a limit on how many residents you can have in the bedroom. Maybe they'll say 2 is the max or 4 is the max. We suggest, again, you do mostly private bedrooms and bathrooms. So you can follow your state rules and regulations, or you can come to a specialty training course like ours, where we're giving you those higher standards, those above and beyond type of rules that we're saying, hey, if you follow this, not only will you tick off your state rules, but you're going to be the nicest home in the area. So when daughter Judy comes to tour, she's going to want your home by far and above, because she walks in, she's like, this is grandiose. This is luxury. I'm willing to pay that extra $1,000 a month because this feels good.
I like that you're providing this is a niche product. I don't know if you ever saw the show Seinfeld, but there's one episode where I can't think of his name now, the goofy guy. He's got some Japanese tourists that are coming to town and they couldn't get their hotel. So he puts them in a dresser, like they're all lined up in a dresser. And I've seen, even in our own town, I went and toured a couple of other facilities. They're not students of yours, obviously, but I felt like people were stacked in there. Like you say, 80 to 100 square foot. It's like, that's literally how it was. There was room for a bed and maybe a dresser that was really a nightstand. It was like, wow, they have no place to go. So you're a more premium product. You're providing here's what I love about this. Because as a real estate investor, one of the things I think about a lot is risk. If I put somebody in there, that's not the person that's paying me. What I understand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Their children generally or their long-term care policy or whatever, or a combination thereof, is who's actually paying me. That is my tenant, or my lessee, in this case, if we're getting legal about it. So logic would dictate that I want to make sure if I'm going to charge somebody a couple $1,000s a month for a bed, that person can afford to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And I see these facilities I see them here in Florida where it's half of what you talk about the national average being. And I walk in there and I'm going, I wouldn't live here, even if I was in the Army in the dorm. This is more like a Navy submarine in here than it is a residential assisted living. But then I see your facilities and pictures of the stuff, your homes that you guys have done and your students have done. It's night and day. So is it fair to assume that when you're putting out a better product, you're automatically going to attract a different type of clientele? Is that true?
100%, because you have to think, you wouldn't sign up to put your loved one in a care home for $6,000 a month if you couldn't even imagine paying that. Like you're just not going to drop your loved one off there and be like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we'll make it work. You're not. You're going to try to make any ends meet to get the lowest, cheapest option possible, typically government funding or the least amount out of your own pocket, right? But the people who are looking for the higher end homes, it's actually interesting. Their mentality is almost the opposite. They want to pay the most possible because they feel so guilty, typically, and so bad that they're like, that one's $5,000, but this one's $7,000. I almost want to put her in the $7,000 a month one because I want to be like, Mom, I gave you the best. I did the best I could. And I really tried. And it's crazy how guilt plays a strong role in this industry.
Well, I like that because at the end of the day, it provides for better care. Mm-hmm. It provides, can you imagine? I have a tough time with 300 square foot. I shouldn't say that. I live in Key West now. So 300 square foot is huge in Key West, but I also own other homes. That's the only reason 300 square foot makes sense in Key West, which is why I'm not there at the moment. But at the end, you're providing a better product. So you're attracting a better leasing. You're not having to chase after them for this month's rent. Let's talk about that was the good. Let's just one little thing. What happens does it happen a lot that people don't pay, or do you teach to vet your people up front? I mean, is that really a thing in this space?
Great question. It is definitely a thing in the lower end homes that are charging below average, but because we're always encouraging, like in our class, we talk about level 1 through 5. And like if national average is really at that 2 to 3 level, I always want people to do level 3, 4, and maybe even a level 5 home. So definitely above average. But in our homes, it's really, really interesting to note this. People always ask that, oh my gosh, what happens if they just drop mom off and then they never pay again? And I can't get in contact with them and yada, yada, yada. At that point in a senior's life, someone is the P of A, the power of attorney, right? The go-to person. And if they do not pay, it is illegal. So you actually call the cops. They get arrested for elder abuse.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Yep. It is not an issue at all because of that. And when everything's been signed over to them and they're the ones in charge, that's part of kind of what's happening there. So it's really simple. It's like, hey, you didn't pay on the 1st. Well, you have till the 5th until your late notice. And on the 6th, we call the cops because now go to jail. It has never happened in 10 years of running 3 homes ever. I mean, people have been late, of course.
Sure, things happen.
Never has anyone just not paid at that price point and with the severity of what it actually means.
Wow.
That's
that eliminates like 95% of vacancy loss. And I just understand with an RAL, you've got medical reasons and unfortunately death that would constitute vacancy. But it sounds like you don't really have vacancy loss for any other reason, like non-pay or whatnot. That to me is the game changer. Yeah. Folks at home, are you hearing this? Those of you who live in the state of Illinois, better yet, Cook County, how about where you can't evict a tenant that doesn't pay their rent when it's cold outside at all? But of course, you can explain to Bank of America why you can't cover your mortgage payments. They don't really want to hear about that. But that's unbelievable to me, that business model. And it's good because it holds people accountable to make sure that because the laws are written not to protect you as the operator, really, it's to protect the resident. Am I using the term correctly? Resident?
Yeah, resident, senior. Yep. It's 100%. It's about them. It's definitely not for you. The government does not care about us landlords.
Exactly. So when we talk about picking areas, we want to do this. Are we looking for like something like kind of industrial, residential? What area makes sense? I mean, obviously we don't want to be in the hood and in places like that, but I mean, are we focusing primarily on residential or commercial?
The number one thing that I look for, no matter if it's the perfect house in the whole wide world, is demographics. If the demographics is proper, I wouldn't even look at the home. And what I mean by that is you have to be surrounded by an average or overwhelming population of 50 to 70-year-olds who are upper middle class, who are typically homeowners making twice the median income. So if that is who's surrounding, then that's where I want to start looking. And definitely I lean towards residential. That way you don't have to rezone it or do anything in that regard. Because once you get into commercial, now you're competing against the big boxes, the Brookdale, Sunrise, Atrium, and you have to have commercial kitchens and fire suppression and all sorts of different things that you don't have to have when you're playing in the residential game. So demographics, staying in residential, obviously a larger footprint, depending on where you are in the country. You're typically allowed to have between 6 to 16 residents in the home. So once you know your number of maximum residents, you're going to want a larger home. That way your renovations aren't that crazy, right? If the home's already 6,000 square feet, maybe it's only 6 bedrooms now, but you could chop it up differently to turn it into a 10-bedroom home.
I see.
Instead of starting with something that's like 2,000 or 3,000, now you need to add a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot addition. That's a lot more challenging. So something with a larger footprint, more bedrooms and bathrooms, honestly, preferably more bathrooms because they're harder to, deal with and make more bedrooms. That's a lot easier.
Right.
And then just a good part of town in general. Like you want it to be in a nice part of town. You could tear a house down and build the Taj Mahal, but if it's in the ghetto, it's in the ghetto.
Right.
Like,
Nobody wants to drop grandma off there.
No. So you want to make sure it's in a good spot and that you feel comfortable and safe driving in and out of there, because that's the experience you want to give to the seniors' loved ones as they're coming and going.
That's good advice.
Isabelle, so obviously you mentioned we want to keep it in a residential area. I didn't think that if it was in a commercial zoned area, we actually have different rules. What we're finding at our town in Florida, where our place is, we've talked to the city. They said, if you have 6 beds, no problem, go ahead. Any more than 6, that's kind of like the new hurdle. Well, we have to get some type of zoning variance, whatnot.
Conditional use, yeah.
Conditional use variance, yeah. Isabelle, can you talk about like any hurdles to get above that threshold in each state? I know it's a little bit different.
Yes, every state is a little different. And sometimes your state, like I want to say the state of Florida, the rule is actually 12, but then a lot of counties are 6 or 8 from what I've seen. So there's certain parts where you might go right outside that county and it's 12 now, but right where your home is might be limiting you to 6. In California, it was limited to 6 for years that I've seen. Just maybe 6 months ago, they lifted it and brought it to 10 if you add fire suppression. And I was like, woohoo, this is amazing. Except for the fact that in California, real estate's expensive. So having 6 people in a home, you could get a 5-bed, 4-bath all day and not even have to do much renovation to it at all. So I wasn't really ever mad about a state saying 6. So if your area does say 6, it's like you might not have the real estate might be significantly cheaper because you don't really have to do much to it. If you're in Texas where your limit is 16, you're never going to find that on the market. You have to build custom from the ground up or do a massive renovation or buy an existing. I mean, there's so many pros and cons. So if your limit is 6, yes, there's things you can possibly do. Apply for a variance, fight legally to get more, say, hey, we have X amount of square feet. This is how many bedrooms we have. Can we, bump it up? And sometimes you'll win and sometimes you won't. But if you do have 6, I would go luxury or I would go memory care. Memory care charges an additional $500 to $1,500 per person per month because it's a higher level of licensing. Your caregivers have more training and licensing, and the physical home has to have extra things like different locks and different doors. So you're able to get more per resident. And as I always say with memory care, you're going to be dealing with it one way or the other. Might as well get paid for it.
Right. I think if they left me alone too long, they might keep me in one of those memory care facilities lately. It's like, no, I own the place. You gotta let me out. Where's the key?
I just want to help the listeners with the picture. So my girlfriend's a nurse practitioner. She travels to ALFs across the country. She does dermatology work for them. And she comes back. Everybody thinks it's like a nursing home where it's white walls and a very sterile environment. She said it's almost like a college dorm. I mean, there's events going on all the time. They bring in like the local historian, the balloon maker. It's a big party.
Yes.
And it's funny because when we walk around town and we see an older person trying to stay in their old house that they've had for millennia and that they don't want to leave, she feels bad for them because she's like, they don't understand. ALFs, it's actually a fun place to live.
Yeah. I agree. We do a lot of activities in the home, senior yoga, pet therapy, music, like all sorts of fun stuff. And I think that they are definitely having more social interaction and fun, right, than a senior who's living alone. Like they're not having any activities. People come to their house for sure. No stimulating conversations. I'll tell you a story. When my dad first got into the industry, he was like, hey, you were in a sorority in college, and I know that the fraternities and sororities have to do X amount of community service hours. Do you think you could put our homes on the list of options? I was like, oh yeah, for sure. So I go into one of my chapter meetings and I tell the girls like, hey, we own this care home. It's down the road. Would anybody want to come and say hi to the seniors and just hang out? I'll sign your community service hours. Like 30 girls were like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, Friday, at 1:00, everybody come. On that Friday, I walked in like 18 hot little sorority girls to this home, and every little grandpa was like, what's happening?
That poor old man.
So excited. And the girls, most of them are from out of state. They haven't seen their family or their grandparents in a long time. And they were excited to hang out with the seniors. They were painting the ladies' nails and doing puzzles and coloring books and just chatting. And the seniors loved it because it was someone new and different to talk to and an interaction, and they didn't know who they were. And the girls were like, can we come back? And it was completely free, and it was an activity for the seniors, and the girls got their credit, and we ended up starting like a whole partnership with it. And it's so cute. So there's a lot of opportunity where if you're living alone as a senior, you're just not going to get that social interaction at all.
What do you find about, I just finished reading your dad's book called Silver Tsunami. And for those sitting at home wondering, what does that mean? It talks about the opportunity that exists in the industry. And one of the things that we look at is sustainability. How sustainable is this exit strategy? And here's a good example. I own short-term rentals and several of those. And they do very, very well. However, we've been at it for many years. So we get most of our business from our advertising and repeat guests and whatnot. So we already kind of have a baked in business model. As we head towards recessionary times, people are having a tough time financially. People have said to me, well, aren't you worried about your short-term rentals? I'm really not, because of who I serve. I serve business travelers and people that are coming. Tarpon Springs is a very family-oriented community where I own my vacation rentals. It's Greek community, so there's a lot of Greeks in there. They are very family oriented, and they live all over the country. But the grandma lives in Tarpon Springs, so they converge in Tarpon Springs throughout the year, because to them they don't just wait for Thanksgiving and Christmas to see their parents, their grandparents. They come home all the time, and they come to our place. We're located right there in the perfect spot in Tarpon Springs, close to everything, whatnot. So it works very well. I don't feel like the business model that we've built in the Airbnb model, I don't feel it's as affected by recessionary times as maybe a lot of the new folks that are out there.
Yeah.
How does that equate to Silver Tsunami? Recessions coming. I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm paying $6,000 a month for my mom to have a place to stay, how does that factor in? Do you have concerns about that coming forward, or are we just dealing with a different economic group of people that really are kind of insulated from a lot of the recessionary stuff that's going on? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting that this time is coming ahead of us, and yet we're not seeing it affecting our markets really at all. And I think that it's because of the fact that with an Airbnb, for example, when money is tight, you pull back, you vacation less, you don't buy those luxury items, those extra cars and boats and whatever it is. You're not vacationing as much. So the vacation Airbnb spots are struggling, right? Because people aren't doing that as much. I also think in tough times, people usually work more, not less. So the only other real option for the $6,000 a month Airbnb is a $2,000 a month Airbnb, or you quit your job and you take care of mom or dad 24/7. And people aren't quitting their jobs right now. They're getting a second job, a third job. They're working harder and more. So there's really, I don't think it's something that you just skimp on, even when times are tough. You'll pull back on everything else, but your loved ones, home care, food, assistance, you won't, unless you're planning on quitting your job and taking care of them, which most people aren't doing during. So it's really kind of a non-issue.
Trend I'm seeing coming in our local town as I look at the demographics based on your training, and I dig in. Our market is perfect for this. And what I'm finding is there is a huge shortfall. There are not nearly enough beds to keep up with the demand. The curve between demand and supply is off the chain. There is tons of demand, virtually no supply. And I'm seeing that there really isn't a boutique type higher end product available in our town, which is interesting because our average income is almost $100,000 in our area. I mean, it's the parameters you give, and then I apply that to our town. I'm like, oh, then we're a flipping home run. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
But I wonder, is that in your experience, is that nationwide in RAL? Do you find that I feel like it's a higher level of commitment? If I'm going to put my mom in a place, I'm not going to move her again, God forbid. Because it's traumatizing, imagine, to the resident to, oh, well, geez, mom, how do I say to my mom, mom, I can't afford to put you here, so I'm going to put you in this closet over here. How do you do that? You don't. So is it fair to say that it is absolutely a higher level of commitment from the tenant that's paying the rent once they're in and they've made this decision that they're going to do the 2-3 jobs if that's what it takes? Have you seen that across the country pretty much?
You know, people are paying for their care through long-term care insurance, which about 10% of the population has, so not very much. VA benefits, if someone served even one day in active duty, it can help support them or their spouse. A lot of people are using, the senior has some cash, some IRA, some savings, or they had a physical property that they now sold, and all that capital is being used to pay for the care needs. So you have to think, that is also the adult child's inheritance money that's going away. So, yes, the average stay in an assisted living home is about 3.5 years, so 3.5 years. So at $4,500 a month on average, that's a lot of money. And most families have one wealthy child who it will then fall to if the senior didn't have the money, they didn't have a home, they didn't have any of these things. So it's interesting because sometimes the money is coming from the senior, but in a different way. Things have already been turned over to the adult child, basically, and now this is their inheritance money that's basically being spent to pay for the care. You are very, very, very on the money with the supply and demand stuff. It's not just your market. Right now, the silent generation is who's living in assisted living, and there's only 44 million of them. The baby boomers, 76 million. So we're almost double, and we are currently 1.3 million beds short in America today.
1.3 short?
Yep.
Whoa.
And they're only projecting that we're building about 50,000 beds per year. So we cannot keep up with what's about to happen. Like I always tell people, if you had a crystal ball in 2008, would you have played differently? And everyone's like, yeah. I'm like, this is that. Like, take your piece of the pie. I don't care if you want to get involved in diapers or medical beds or long-term care insurance, whatever it is. For me, it's residential assisted living, but it's like, get involved in something that's going to be needed by the baby boomers because they're going to need a lot, and there's nothing there to support this massive silver tsunami, right? This massive wave that's going to hit the shore.
That's unbelievable. Ding, ding, ding. It's here. It's time to go. Quit coming up with excuses and get out there and do it. Absolutely. That's what I say on the show all the time to people. They're probably sick of hearing it. Wow, that's interesting. Did you have something to add, Mike?
Yeah, Tyler. Well, Isabelle, so in our whole market research, Tyler's down on the ground. He was in Tarpon Springs for a while, and he went to visit some of the local ALFs, the residential assisted livings, that are houses converted. And so he had kind of firsthand experience of our competition, I guess you would call it, but the local market. And Tyler, I would love if you could share what you experienced there, because it's not exactly what we thought from the training, but of course, not everybody has attended your training, and not everybody is striving for the higher end market.
Right.
So the first thing I found, I'm a marketer. I love marketing and everything. I love the psychology of marketing. It's a hobby. Although it puts money in my pocket every year, it's a hobby. I love sales funnels and conversions and closing and all that. But my wife and I, there are 7 facilities registered with the state in Tarpon Springs, RALs, right? 10, 12 beds or less. Of those 7, 2 of the phone numbers on the state website are out of service.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I believe it.
So that leaves me 5. I called the remaining 5. I've never talked to anybody except for at one facility. They actually answered the phone. They said, yeah, come right over. I went over, looked at it, and it was nothing wrong. It was nice. It wasn't high end. I would say it would be more of if I had to go like Walmart, Target, Nordstrom, this is more like a mix between Walmart and Target. It was okay, but not amazing, whatever. It was kind of in a forgotten about part of town. It was, I would call it an industrial area backed up to a marina and boat building facility in town. So not exciting. You look across the street, you see broken down boats. Not a place I would want my mom to wake up and look out the window and go, I'm just happy to be alive. No.
Yeah.
They were charging, I think it was $2,200 a bed.
Okay.
And the first thing so that was my first takeaway. Number one, people aren't even answering the phone to take on new guests. So that makes me wonder. It's like, clearly they don't have any training. They must have gone on this themselves. I started looking into the licensing. They've been licensed for a decade or 2. Yeah. And the one place that I did get into it was a 10-bed, I think a 12-bed facility, and it had 3 vacancies, which I found odd because everything else I looked at said people are standing in line to get in. But I found that at first, the operator was a very nice lady. Don't get me wrong, very nice, but very much a caregiver, very much not a business person. Yeah. I'm sure you run into that all the time. But she immediately says $2,200, but I can cut you a deal. And I'm thinking, whoa, if you've got 3 vacancies, my question is why? Yeah. And first of all, number 2, don't give me a deal when I haven't asked for one, because you're going to give up some level of service. So I found that fascinating. Number 1, and I'm forgetting one, Mike. What am I forgetting?
That she bought a job.
Oh, yes, that she owned her job. So I asked her, like, are you the owner? She's like, yeah, I'm the owner. I'm also the caregiver. And I have this assistant that works with me as a caregiver. And my husband is a nurse, and he's the comptroller, whatever, for the company. I'm like, where is he? Well, he's out getting groceries right now, and he's over at Costco, and then he's got to do some work on the roof, but you can talk to him later. After that, I was thinking, oh my God, these people have actually owned a job. When somebody comes to RAL and graduates RAL, we run into that too. Do they wind up, is that what they're doing? Are they buying a job, or are you teaching them to work on the business?
Correct. So that it's what you're telling me is not shocking, besides the fact that was terrible that she offered you a deal without.
It's like, what?
My face was like, but other than that, no, 80% of this industry is run by mom and pop style. Wow. 80%. So what you saw is not uncommon at all. We often get people who come to the class who that's exactly who they are. And then they say, I don't get it. How are you cash flowing 20, 30, 40 grand a month on these homes? What am I doing wrong? I can barely make ends meet, and I work in the home every day. And then we show them everything they're doing wrong. And they're like, I'm running this completely wrong. They are doing exactly like you said. They're working in the business, not on it. They're the caregiver, the candlestick maker, the cook, the baker. They're wiping the bums. They're doing the tours. They're doing everything. That is the complete antithesis of what we teach. We're showing you how to do it as a professional business owner, being that more passive, hands-off. Like, I visit our homes every other month, and I have one meeting a week with our administrator. And
Wow.
like, that's what I want to show other people how to do. And it's what we do show other people how to do, to the point where, Mike, I know you said you're in Colorado. One of our students is in Colorado. They have 26 properties. Like, there's no way that you could run hands-on 26 properties of RAL status. You have to be hands-off, especially if you want to scale, to package them up, to sell them to a hedge fund or private equity or something along that, line. So it's very, very common in the RAL industry, 80% that are exactly what you said: zero marketing, no website, no sign up front, no nothing. Like, there's no way you might even find them. And that's crazy to me. So we do cover a lot of marketing, because even silly things like, we tell people, have a website, and they're like, well, duh. And I'm like, no, it's not well duh. Like, most people don't. Like, so I'm like, no, you have to do these things. But if you do them, you are now leaps and bounds above everybody else. And just like you said, if there's 7 homes and you're the 8th, and you've got a website and brochures, and when you call, they answer, and we got a tour for you, and they welcome you with cookies and a welcome package. It's like, no, duh, they're putting mom in that home.
Right.
There's no other option.
I will say, when I toured this facility, it was clean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a clean freak. I just like things clean and neat. My wife's anal about making sure everything's in its spot, and everybody looked happy, and there was like no blaring television. There was television on, but ironically, nobody was in that room. They were all in there in the eating area, individual tables, playing cards and whatever. And we dropped in on essentially unannounced. She says, "Come over anytime today." So it's not like they brought the puppies and kittens out when we were showing up. It was they were doing a lot of it right. Obviously, the things we talked about, they weren't, but I found that pretty fascinating, the whole thing. One of the things that real estate investors do, I'm sure you realize this, Isabelle, is they get sucked into doing it, but they buy a job. I like the fact that you guys teach, bring an administrator in. There are steps to doing that, and you guys have done a great job. Mike and I, for those of you listening at home, we took their first level course. We bought their course. This is not a sponsored episode by any means. We paid the money, took the course. My wife and I and Mike all took it. We did it over the holidays. Wondering, I don't have a year to figure this out. Good. You don't need a year. We got through the free one, and then the paid first version of the paid one. That went very well. We came away with a lot of information, blown away by the resources, by the way. One of the things I love about the way you guys put things together, and this is how training should be, by the way. The benefit of paying for training is to get things delivered to you in an organized fashion. Because people say, well, I can learn all that on YouTube. Yes, you could, but you everything that you can learn from any real estate course, including my coaching programs from the past, yours, it's all available for online for free. The catch is you have to invest the time to go find it all, put it in an order such that you can actually use the information. Because if you teach me, you talk about like fixing a car. If you teach me about chrome bumpers when I'm trying to figure out how to make the car go, well, by the time I actually get through the YouTube video that teaches me to do the carburetor, it's too late. I can't wait that long. I'll be old and gray. So you guys have really done a great job laying things out. Can we just touch on how the process starts? Somebody's listened to the episode. I want to do this. I want to be an operator. I love the fact that I'm not going to have to buy a job. I can go out. I can learn how to bring in my team so that I don't have to do the work. There are those people, Isabelle, that love the job they have. They want to supplement their income. They would rather do this than maybe invest in a syndicate with somebody. Maybe they've got 50 grand sitting around and they're willing to get a business off the ground, or they've got a couple friends or whatever. And even maybe they don't have any money. Maybe they can cover the cost of training and that's it. How do they get started? What's the first step in that process?
For me, always the first step is just deciding like where you're going to do this. So doing that market research and determining what areas you're going to be focused on.
Right.
There's 4 ways to do it. So then I always say be open to opportunity. If land becomes available and it's in the perfect place and everything's perfect, then maybe you are going to do a custom build, right? if one that's existing is for sale in that area, maybe you're going to buy an existing one, or maybe you're going to partner with someone like the two of you, right? Where you guys are going to own the real estate and lease it back to the person who's the operator. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get into it. But first is determining that area, being open to whichever route it takes you, doing that renovation or getting the home up and running, hiring your staff, doing the marketing all along the way from day one, I always say, doing that marketing, and then you're doing open homes and you're really filling the home. And throughout that process, you're working on getting licensed so that hopefully you're licensed by, your day one and you're opening, and then you're filling it with residents. And really the staff is being taken care of. When you're hiring the manager, they're hiring the caregivers and setting that up, what it's going to look like, what's the culture, and how are we going to run this property, and using different documents like policies and procedures and staffing secrets and menus and schedules. All those things have to be submitted to the state for approval. So those are things that you can pay for speed by, paying somebody to get you templated documents of that nature, right, so that you can edit them and get it in a lot faster. But really it's that A to Z, getting the property in the right spot, getting your staff, marketing the whole way, working on your license, touring and filling the home. And now you're up and running.
And that begins with, so your training basically soup to nuts covers that. You go through it. It's a business in a box. If you're willing, you make an investment of time first, go through the process, probably start out with the free course, I would imagine, maybe your blueprint, get through that, get into the meat and potatoes of it. From what I'm seeing now that we're on the inside of it, is that anything I really need when it comes to support, if you don't offer it, you already have it as a referral partner. In other words, paperwork, compliance, legal help, financing, syndicates. I mean, the resources was off the chain. I was well done. That's what I'm trying to get to. Well done. I want to talk about one little kind of carve out. I think about ADA compliance, and I know in your couple, you didn't think one of your dad's books I read, he says, well, that's kind of a misnomer. You don't always have to be ADA compliant per se, because not everybody's broken and decrepit that lives there. Are they advanced age? Of course. And it brings me particularly to like a 2-story home, for example. In New England, every house is a 2-story house. There's no such thing as a ranch house in Boston, for example. Everything is stairs and the doorways are narrow. Same thing in Key West. Every place is small. You can't make something wheelchair accessible because the place was built in 1889. It's never going to happen. Yet your dad's training talks about what he had said during his book anyway. And I'm curious, is this still the case today? You can absolutely still do it with a 2-story home as an operator. What do you say to an operator like a town, like a place like Florida, or maybe even Arizona? Arizona has a lot of ranch style homes. Florida has a lot of ranch style homes. However, those ranch style homes go for a premium. A 4-bedroom, 2-bath ranch style home in St. Petersburg, Florida is a $700,000 purchase before rehab, where a 2-story, because nobody likes climbing steps, you may be able to buy the same square footage, same bedroom count. It has stairs. That one's $200,000 less. Yeah. Can you still do it in a community where there's a shortage, right? So there's more demand than there is supply, or is it just you really should focus on the single family homes? Any thoughts on that?
Or we do have a lot of students with multi-level homes, and most of them have added in elevators or chairlifts. So if you can accommodate and add that in, then I would do that all day. We've got a guy in Livingston, New Jersey, who has a 4-story home, because it's technically 2 stories plus a third and then the basement. And he built out the whole basement with like a gym and a movie theater and all this stuff. And he's got an elevator that goes to all 4, and it made a lot of sense for that property. But some properties, it just doesn't make sense, especially if the Northeast is so tricky because there's so many things that are not senior safe about those homes. It's not just let's put an elevator in. It's like the hallways are itsy bitsy. I mean, you can't even barely fit down them. So there's some tricky things with that, but elevators and chairlifts for 2-story homes. But I would say, I don't really care about the cost of the real estate. I've seen our students and us pay full price or overprice for homes because it doesn't matter. It's the opportunity at the end of it. If the numbers are going to work and it's going to support that, it really doesn't matter what you paid for the property. If you're going to be cash flowing enough to way cover that and still be making a lot more off of it. Now, if you're not, then of course, no, that's why you have to run the numbers. And I'm sure you guys saw with the course you took, we have like different free tools that you can just plug and play with the numbers, like the profitability calculator, and just see what that would look like. If I was paying 15 grand a month in the mortgage, am I still going to be cash flowing this way? And if it's showing you you're not, then that's probably not a property that's going to work, because like we said, it doesn't matter what you build. It matters about what the rates are around you. There's a ceiling of what you can charge. So you need to find out what everybody else is charging, how much nicer you're going to be, and then kind of determine what that looks like. You can't just plop a home down and say, we're going to charge 10 grand a month and everyone else is charging 2 or 3. Like,
Yeah. Like I say, no, you're not.
Yeah. You'll have no residents. So you have to make sure the numbers work, but ranch style is always preferred. But really, I don't care about the cost of the real estate if the numbers pan out at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Because I know that when market rent can be subjective, right? Depending on if it's a multifamily, I know that a 2-1 in Clearwater, Florida will rent for this much, which if it's the number's $2 grand, which is really what it is right now, or close to it anyway. That means you can't, to your point, you can't go do a rehab that can only be paid for by a $2,300 a month rent if the market will bear. So obviously there needs to be you need to pay attention to how much is this operator going to take in per bed. If market rent in my area for that house is $3 grand, can I legitimately get 6 from the operator? And as a real estate investor, you got to know that on the front end. I'm not going to go put a $20,000 generator in a natural gas system and a new roof and all these other things on the property that I have to do, or actually fire suppression. I got a quote on fire suppression, 50 grand. It's like, well, I have to capitalize that somehow. How do I get that money back? I have to build that into the cost of the asset. And these are the things that we got to be paying attention to. So that's good information. Yeah. Mike, any other questions before we wrap up?
Well, we learned a lot today, and
that's for sure.
Tyler, your experience about a mom and pop operator versus what Isabelle's talking about, what she's taught us in our classes that we've taken, what she trains her students for. Isabelle, so if we were going to be leasing, or anybody's going to be leasing the property to an operator, how do they make sure that they don't find the mom and pops who are, charging $1,500 a month and just completely falling apart? How do we find somebody who has your vision, like your students, and more importantly, your students that have your company's support? Because they might be a novice, but as long as they have that backbone support, that's what we're looking for. How do we find that?
Yeah, in our training, obviously, hopefully everyone is going through is following what we're saying. And so they're going to be running it better. But whoever you're going to be partnering with in this business, whether you're on the landlord side or the operator side, you should be presenting each other, or at least the operator should be presenting that landlord a business plan, showing you what this is going to look like and what they're planning to charge, and proving that the market can bear what they're planning, and giving you all of that data and research. It shouldn't be pie in the sky. It shouldn't be written on a piece of paper. It should be legitimate, because this is a big deal. And you want to make sure as the landlord that they can pay for what you're looking for. As far as finding those people, we have a couple free Facebook groups. We also host a national convention every single year. So it's once a year, usually in the fall, and that has like 700 to 800 people who come. And that's a great place to kind of network with others in the industry and make partnerships. And we also have our higher level platinum membership, where the students are working with our team every single day, hands-on, and there's a lot of great partnerships that happen there. So working with someone who's really on board with us, and different indicators will show you that in their business plan. Me and the rest of our team is on their board of advisors. So if someone brings you a business plan and I'm on their board of advisor, they better be legit.
That's right. I'll be giving you a call. You ever heard of this guy? Harry who? Never heard of this guy.
Give me the call. I'll tell you if they're legit.
There you go. That was awesome. So those of you, thank you so much, first of all, for coming on. I know you're very busy. You got a lot going on. A lot of moving parts. Love what you're doing. Huge respect for what you guys are putting together, what you guys have done for the industry. I mean, I've looked at lots and lots and lots and lots of training. I normally don't have anybody on the show who does any sort of coaching whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have them on the show, but I don't do it without first vetting their training. Because the last thing I ever want is one of my listeners to spend their hard-earned money getting into some useless sales funnel that gives them nothing but a credit card bill. And I got to say, as one of your students, you guys are knocking it out of the park. And coming from me, it's normally my people listening at home are like, he's got to be serious, because I don't pull any punches when it comes to, if your stuff sucks, it sucks. And I'll say it sucks. It's like, sign here. So you guys have really done a great job. I love what you're doing for the industry. Mike and I got a ton of information out of your training. So thank you for what you do for the industry. I hope that folks at home take some action, right? Get over to, I'm going to put your links and social media contacts down in the show notes. We want you guys to go over there and check it out. Get on the YouTube channel. You guys are so very transparent and very good at putting out. You give more than you take back. I love that. There is so much that you put out that's free, for goodness sake. You're not the only trainer in town, by no means. But I got to say, I've looked at them all, and you guys are killing it. So thank you for what you do for the industry. Mike, any last parting comments?
Yeah, Isabelle, your energy comes right through, and obviously you're passionate about the industry. You're passionate mostly about the seniors, and like I said, my girlfriend works in the same facilities, and yeah, she comes home and with a big smile on her face, you'll never believe the friends I made today. But that excitement, your excitement coming through really shows that this aspect of real estate, because let's be honest, most of real estate can be pretty boring. Yes. Dealing with tenants, plumbers, electricians. But this is kind of like that softer side. And that's why we wanted to bring you on today, to show everybody like real estate investing could be, yes, it's profitable, but it could be fun. And honestly, it can make you feel good inside. A good heart, you make new friends. I like older people. I'm like an older soul, so I kind of really connect with that too. So thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. So that's a wrap. There you have it. You know what to do. Now is the time that you take some action. You get off the couch, get off your ass, get to work. This is not going to come to you and knock on your door. You're going to actually have to get off the couch, go on YouTube, learn about Isabelle, go on Instagram, follow her on Instagram, go out on Facebook, get into their funnel, start reading the emails, take in all that free training. When you think that this is what you want to do and you're ready to pull the trigger and take the plunge, then you opt in. You jump in with both feet. You learn what you need to learn. You learn how to build a team. What have we been saying for 300 and I forgot how many episodes now, 369 episodes, 7 years. I've been telling you, and most of you have been listening since day one. Thank you for that. 369 weeks consecutively, I've been telling you one thing: build a team. This opportunity is exactly everything I've been talking about over the last 7 years. Build a team, put the right people in place, help them prosper while prospering on your own. Guys, we're going to leave it right there, and we'll catch up with you next week.
This concludes today's episode. You don't have to wait till the next episode to learn to earn.
Head over to cashflowguys.com and contact Tyler and his team for more powerful tips and ideas, so you can start generating multiple streams of income and escape the rat race.